Can I have my guests unmute, please?
What's up?
How you guys doing?
I'm amazing.
All right. So
Doing all
now,
right.
now that we've said hi to each other, I can start the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to VR Devs Breakdown. I rebranded the show since the last episode because previously it was QK Halliday's Game Analysis Podcast, but I wanted to open it up because we're all a part of this show now, and I didn't want to make it just me. So I would like to introduce myself. My name is Quinn Cusledge. I am the channel that this podcast plays on, and I'm joined by VR developer and technical artist Joseph Jansen, Xavier Rodriguez, who is also a VR developer and technical artist, and Anthony Randazzo, a fellow YouTuber and very close friend of mine who shares my love for the Resident Evil series. He probably outmatches my love for this series. So I thought he would be the perfect consumer guest to have on this show. We couldn't find a industry professional guest to be on this episode, but next week and the week after that, we will have professional guests again. So, off of that, we're going to just kind of move on. As for the game we're playing today, I'm going to let Joe introduce it because he actually played it before me. I don't know how many hours I have in it at this point, but I think it's around 30. But I feel like Joe might have a little bit more, so I'm going to let you introduce this game, talk about its history, and what the gameplay is like, what people should expect from this stream as well. Do a little bit of a content warning in there if you can, Joe.
So, Zambies. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, as you can see, we're playing Resident Evil 2, the remake specifically, which was developed by Capcom and was a remake of the original 1998 game of the same name. And so, you play as either Leon S. Kennedy or Claire Redfield. You can choose between your different protagonists in this game, and they all have varying different events that occur and characters that they'll see throughout their like parallel stories. And what's cool about Resident Evil 2, the remake specifically, is that it's in the third person gameplay variant that we first saw back in Resident Evil 4. It's no longer the fixed camera angles and tank like controls of the original first and second ones. So love it or hate it, this was a very divisive thing amongst fans, and it brought up a lot of discussion points, but
Well, actually, just to jump on that, Joe, they do have an unlockable mode where you can play the original fixed angles. Yeah, so if you play the game and you beat it on, I believe, like the hardest difficulty, you unlock the fixed camera mode. So you can play through the game as it originally came out with the updated graphics.
Oh, okay. I did not. I thought that was. I saw that as a mod, but I guess they must have added it in a recent update.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're only going to be able to make it through the very first part of the beginning section of the game today, and that's because of time, and we did have to re-record the pre-recorded footage for this episode because of video issues, so no fault to you, Anthony. That was like literally something you couldn't have anticipated.
That's messed
No,
up.
I got to play Resident Evil 2 for an hour this morning. It was fine.
Wait, how far did you get though?
I only got to the first disc, so...
Really?
Yeah, no.
Oh.
I mean, the thing is, though, is I played it a lot slower. I didn't move the camera around too much. I wanted to keep it mostly cinematic. I also chose a Leon playthrough because, in your original video, you chose it as well. And usually I play as Claire because she actually makes the game easier with her grenade launcher. And, when you play Resident Evil 2 as Leon, you're asking for pain. I don't know if anyone else shares that opinion. But that's how I genuinely feel about playing as Leon. It's just like, oh boy, a shotgun. Cool.
Hey man, that thing is way better than you'd expect though, alright?
Of course.
Yeah, it can kill some stuff pretty good.
Alright.
Breaking Dead.
Well, so right now we're kind of looking at the intro sequence, and besides the disgusting burger, I think this is really good. We've got some really great dynamic materials here, as well as a decent lighting scenario. I don't know, how do you feel kind of about the opening to this game? Because this is like the cold open. It introduces us to the zombie outbreak in, a slightly comedic, slightly terrifying way. And I think Go ahead.
No, continue.
No, I was just going to say I think it's effective.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure this cutscene was actually added into the remake. I believe in the original Resident Evil 2, you start out with like Leon's perspective, kind of like, being a police officer on his first day in the job. So I think it's kind of interesting the way they showed the beginning of the zombie outbreak here, where you're taking the perspective of this kind of passerby just kind of being like introduced to the horrifying scenario in front of him.
Oh, that's interesting. I wish I knew for certain if that were true, like if it was actually added in, but it seems like probably. Now, I think the best part about this is how this poor dude didn't know that he ran over a zombie and lost his life because of it. And like, if you've watched zombie movies or played other zombie games or just games related to the genre, every time you see humans do stupid things, you just kind of internally cringe. And I think that adds to the tension of the game, you know, especially scenes like this and scenes with other humans. I think that it gives us a lot to kind of go off of. And Joe, I know you've talked to me about this before, so if you could kind of share your insights on that, I'd appreciate it.
Like the cliche of zombies.
Yeah,
in general.
yeah, you were talking about that like a few years ago, if I remember correctly, when you were playing this game, and if you could search your memory and elaborate on that, that'd be great.
Well, I think I was more or less talking about like what was interesting about the Resident Evil 2 series and Capcom especially. They've kind of get roasted for their cheesy dialogue, especially with the original 1998 iteration of this game. The dialogue was very odd at times. The writing department viewers would just laugh at how things were stated and the tone they were in.
Was this game originally made for an American audience, or was it made for not an American audience?
Well, it was released in both in the West and East, but like that was one of the main criticisms. Capcom is just known for that in a lot of their titles. And
I mean, even in the remake, I think the voices can be kind of clunky sometimes.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is that they purposely still kept that in as kind of a nod, because they just have acknowledged that now at their games. They're like, yeah, we're known for our cheesy dialogue. Like, we're gonna keep a little bit in, but like still keep it mostly serious.
Yeah, I mean, the game. I think I like that though, that the game takes itself seriously, because it, compared to the original, the remake is truly terrifying, and I'm sure that the original was terrifying when it came out. You know, I was 2 years old, so, you know, I never played it. And when the remake came out, I was like, sweet, I get to experience this current gen. I'm so excited. And I remember buying it like the day it came out and bringing it over to Anthony's. So like this first scene, we played together sitting at his desk in front of his Xbox. And it was really cool. Do you remember that, man?
Yeah, no, it was a good time.
I think...
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about this game is a lot of zombie games, you know, they have you just kill everything that gets in your way. Whereas this game, you know, stresses a little bit more of the resource management of survival horror. And, you know, you're not meant to kill everything that gets in your way. In fact, shooting a zombie in the head doesn't immediately kill it. It doesn't even immediately drop it to the ground. So, you know, a lot of the game is you practicing some strategy and tactics of like, all right, where do I shoot? Who should I shoot? What's in my way? Can I get around it without shooting it? And it's that risk-reward system where it's like, can I run around this guy, or do I need to down him so I can get past him and grab the key that I need and run back? And not a lot of zombie games can capture that amount of tension the way this one does, because the moment I grab the key, he gets back up, and now I'm being chased.
The serpentine playstyle.
Yeah, the serpentine playstyle. I mean, I've watched Anthony play it this way. I didn't actually realize that that's how you're supposed to play this game until I watched Anthony play, and I'm like, why aren't you killing any of them? And he basically said, you know, why bother? If you just tap him in the head, it stuns him, and you can loop around.
Yeah, save the ammo for when you need it, when you actually have to kill bosses.
Yeah, oh my god.
No, I can't tell you how many boss fights I've gotten to and just been like, well, I'm going to try to kill them with my knife, my grenades, and like 40 rounds.
That's like kind of a classic Resident Evil trope, is like, shit, I spent all my ammo on the imps on the low.
This is definitely a series for sure that's just not forgiving to those who want to just run and gun.
Yeah, and I think that that's good, because it keeps the gameplay varied and interesting. In Leon's playthrough, you know, in the very first section, and you'll see that in this play footage, I get a shotgun, and you'll notice that as compared to the pistol, the shotgun has even less ammo, and it's more powerful, but you can't rely on it. So now you have to switch between your shotgun and your pistol and manage ammo for both. And that leads to a lot of really exciting gameplay moments where you whip out the shotgun to save your life, and then you regret shooting that shell off because you might need it later. So,
Yeah,
like,
but I think
Go ahead.
I think, yeah, I was just saying, I think that item conservation though really sells the idea of it being like a horror title. It really kind of puts you into the head of the users because realistically, if you were in this situation, you would be constantly thinking about like, oh, do I have enough ammo to like survive a zombie encounter? I don't know. You're like constantly managing item resources. I think it really helps reinforce the genre of the title itself, because Resident Evil, it is a survival horror title, and not every Resident Evil game, I think,
No way.
quite hits the mark on being, survival horror, but I think definitely this game.
Well, I think what's interesting about the remake is that they made 2 and then they made 3, and 3 was a little bit more action centric. Then they made 4, which was like pretty much an action game with very little horror elements, but it was still scary. 5 was just an absolute bombastic adventure where there was no horror elements whatsoever, and 6 took that even farther to the point where it was like, am I even playing Resident Evil anymore? And then we had a drawback to the beginning of the series with a complete tonal shift, and that was Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and it brought us right back to the resource management, the terrifying moments of, oh my god, what the hell is going to be down this hallway? And I think that when they made 7 and it was critically acclaimed as like one of the greatest Resident Evil games ever, they went back to 2 and were like, let's remaster this and re-release it because people seem to want what this is. They want that darker tone, that scarier game, something that keeps them on the edge of their seats. And I think that they nailed
well
it.
Timed.
Edge
Something
something actually
jumps.
Yeah, well, something funny actually about the development of the Resident Evil 2 remake is that as they were making it, actually, a fan project to remake Resident Evil 2 was getting popular on the internet. And Capcom, when they heard that there was a fan remake being made, they, being the copyright holders, they told them to shut the project down. But they hired on the developers of that fan-made remake to help develop the Resi 2, the official remake. Yeah, which I think that's really cool of Capcom, personally.
I can agree with
Yeah,
that.
I think that's great to see.
It's funny because they did like that Twitter post for it. They're like, "We're gonna do it!" Like, and they had like one of the head developers there, and he's like live, and he's just like, "Oh," he's got like a shirt up with the new updated logo, and he's like, "We're doing it," and everyone's just like lost it.
I wasn't a fan of the Resident Evil series until I played this game, and after I beat it, I went and bought like every other Resident Evil game. So I haven't made it through all of them, but I definitely became a fan after I played this. I mean, I don't think anything can compare to running through the halls of the police station. I mean, that is a terrifying structure, and they set the tone so well that you can't help but feel immersed. And I think in a game that's so non-realistic, like if you really think about it, being able to sell that immersion simply with atmosphere before we even fight a zombie is really cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's also like several parts too. Like there's the first time you walk through one of the hallways. I could be wrong here, but I swear there's like a zombie hanging or whatever, and like you walk by it and you're super on edge thinking it's gonna fall or attack you, and it doesn't. Then the next time I walked through the hallway, the zombie did drop and it started to try to like kill me.
Yeah.
And I was like,
nope.
And like I jumped. Like I know my playthrough isn't on here currently, but in that playthrough, you can literally see my mouse just spin around essentially because I'm like actually terrified.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about though, because this playthrough ends at that moment when he gets up, and like
Yeah, it's too much.
that was horrifying because then you think to yourself, oh, maybe I should double tap every zombie that I come across because you don't know if they're dead or not, but then you run out of ammo. So
Yeah.
it's really just you trusting that you will be able to flip fast enough to defend yourself. And the best part about this game is if you're moving your cursor very fast as you're trying to aim at the zombie's head, it'll actually be less accurate. So the game punishes you for being afraid and rewards you for being like very calculated with your shots. You know, if you can get back, relax, and aim, you'll live and you'll probably not lose any health. But if you're like freaking out, screaming, and rapidly aiming around trying to get that headshot, you're gonna lose health. And you get
You keep
continue.
going,
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
I've been talking way too much, guys.
Yeah, I was just gonna say how I think it's interesting how the game just actively discourages using ammo basically by means of the gameplay, because normally, you know, headshots in any game are kind of meant to be like this really rewarding, satisfying thing that you can do to an enemy, and it's almost always like a guaranteed insta kill. But in this game, you have to hit a zombie 2-3 times before they even collapse on the ground, let alone die, which requires even more ammo of the limited supply that you have. So I think I think the gameplay kind of helps reinforce that theme. Once again, we were talking about earlier of item conservation, you know, making sure to use as little, you know, resource management and whatnot. And I personally think that's just a good example of game design.
That's actually a really good point, man. Awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
I just want to say before we move on talking about the game design more, anyone who's watching, if you ask questions in the chat, we will answer them live because we don't have a professional, so I'm not interviewing anyone today.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the unique selling points for the Resident Evil series in general is just their known unique selling point and feature being the adaptive difficulty. So there's not really a predetermined like difficulty choice like something you would see like in Halo where it's like easy, normal, heroic, legendary. Like Resident Evil 2 doesn't start off with you choosing like what is your difficulty option. Like it naturally challenges the user depending on the statistics of like what they're doing in the game. So like if you're rocking
Joe,
through the game.
Well, I thought it gave you an option at the beginning because you can choose from assisted, standard, or hardcore.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
thinking
it
Resident
does.
Evil 4.
Yeah, 4 does that.
Yeah, 4 forces you to play on normal though, but I completely agree with that point.
But they still do a form of adaptive difficulty, like because one thing I've noticed is like
well, the AI will adapt. So
yeah,
one thing I notice is that if I am playing in a way that I want to juke out the zombies, they'll start to split off. They'll split off and try and like.
Sorry, that pause.
I'm sorry. I just got like a ton of spammers on Twitch right now.
just saw that.
Yeah, want to become famous? Buy followers. Like, no, thank you. Sorry.
Wait, isn't that how you're supposed to become famous, though?
No, that is not how you become famous. You become famous by making content. This channel is not to make me famous. It's to establish myself and friends as developers. So, back to what I was saying before I got distracted. Yes, the zombies will split off, and the AI will adapt to your playstyle to challenge you and keep you from, you know, relying on the same play style the entire game and thus, you know, getting bored.
Yeah, I agree. Not to go off topic here a little bit, it's still on Resident Evil, but specifically Resident Evil 4 that's coming out in VR. I think the one thing that I feel like is going to be hard to get used to is I feel like it's going to be a lot harder to knife zombies. That's something on like, if I would do playthroughs on like the hardest difficulty, I noticed I would do that a lot because you can conserve a lot of ammo just by like suplexing zombies over and over again.
Yeah, I don't know how you're gonna suplex zombies like you would in Resident Evil 4. By the way, this doesn't have to be about Resident Evil 2. If you want to talk about Resident Evil 4 being remade on the Quest, dude, go off. I don't care. This is
I think
VR
it's gonna be
devs
good.
breakdown.
I don't know. I think that's just one thing where I'm like, that's how I got through that playthrough, and I felt like it was still pretty difficult to control ammo.
What I see as a potential is if Resident Evil 4 on the Quest is successful and we play it and then that keeps going, we could play this game on a VR headset. And I would pay hundreds of dollars for that opportunity. Like, you could charge me double what a AAA game comes out at, like, top price. I would pay that to play this game in VR. And I think that now that they're taking that third-person gameplay template and they're transferring it over to VR, you know, the sky's the limit. They could translate all of those games into a VR game once they get those systems in place, because the systems in Resident Evil 4 aren't super different from Resident Evil 2 Remake, besides some updates and controls for the modern era of game design and gameplay. But I think it would be really fun to play. And with the knife, Anthony, you can actually hold the knife and the pistol at the same time in the Resident Evil 4 remake, which is what I saw in that gameplay trailer. So I feel like having that dual-handed interaction, so like dual interaction with both your hands, is going to come in really handy when fighting zombies. And it might actually be easier to play through Resident Evil 4 in VR than it would be traditionally on the GameCube or any of their recent ports on Xbox One and PS4 and PC.
No, I could see that for sure. It all just kind of depends on how am I going to suplex them.
So here's an exact example of where I tried to kind of train them back around there, and the game kind of knew that I was doing that, so it sent that zombie in the middle to head me off, and I lost health. And I remember that actually scared the crap out of me. So like I didn't record my voice in this pre-recording, but I screamed when that happened. So I don't know if you heard me this morning, Xavier, but I totally screamed at like 8 a.m. when I was recording this.
I was not conscious enough to hear that, but I can imagine it in my head.
Well, the thing is that I've played through this game 5 times, and I still get scared sometimes. And like a lot of times I'm like laughing at the zombies as they're trying to get me, but then they'll do this weird thing where they will completely change my perspective by doing something that I did not even expect. And that's terrifying. Oh, I do have a question in the chat. Hey, Dad, thanks for watching. So Stefan Koslich asked literally what we were talking about. He just said, scariest game I've ever played. I still have a fight-flight response when I hear the PS2 boot up, which is actually kind of funny. I have a fight-or-flight response from that just because it's a terrifying noise because they dropped a piano off of a roof to get the sound, or at least that's like the urban legend. And yes, Resident Evil 4 is coming to VR. What's it going to be like? I will link the gameplay trailer for the Resident Evil 4 remake on Quest in the description of this video on YouTube. So at the end of this, go ahead and look down at the
coronavirus.
I just realized you guys can see the chat too. Awesome.
I know. I was gonna read it off. I was gonna be like,
go ahead.
Podcast super fan, CEO of Ghost Productions, soon to be sponsor of our stream. The mighty Stefan Koslich himself possibly thinks there might be delays because of the coronavirus.
No, I don't think so. At this point, studios have figured out how to work remotely, and if they're not, a lot of them are probably vaccinated. So I don't see any delays coming to Resident Evil 4, especially because they were able to bring over so many assets from the gameplay original. And since they were optimized for the GameCube, I don't see much of a technical jump to the Quest 2, if I'm being completely honest. I could be completely wrong, but given the fact that they were able to literally transfer over all the animations and then optimize them for VR interaction, I feel like the game is going to come out on the release date as scheduled, which has not been announced yet. So there is no announced date for Resident Evil 4 Quest Remake, but once they announce it, I'm just going to predict that it will come out on release as expected and there won't be any delays. Oh my god! If I'm wrong, that's gonna bite me in the ass like 10 months from now. Oh my god!
No, it's okay. You'll be all right. Joe, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just gonna say my only concern. Like I thought it was cool that they were able to re-optimize the assets from the GameCube. It would make that approach would make sense. But my only concern with that is cinematics. How are you gonna?
So they didn't actually cover that in the.
They said it like very briefly.
They said they'll be the same. I'm assuming they're gonna do it Bonework style or Pistol Whip style, where they're showing us the cinematics inside of a black room like it's a mini theater. And though that's a really effective way to not take control of the camera and cause motion sickness, oh my god, it's gonna kill immersion so fast every time there's a cutscene.
Yeah, and also there's a lot of quick time events, like when you fight crowds and stuff like that. How are you supposed to do that with VR without like actually getting motion sickness? Or will it take away from that scene in general? Like, I have no idea how they're gonna adapt that and make that work.
Me neither.
Well, originally, because like the thing about QuickTime event or like those responses, those button prompts that would happen during cutscenes, is they used to originally. That was kind of how you could make a cutscene feel immersive, because like having the player tap the triangle button repeatedly, it makes them feel like they're actually participating in the cutscene.
But
whereas if it was done in VR, it would actually feel like it's taking away from the
no,
player.
I would say I would disagree with you, Xavier, and I would also say that those cutscenes, those button mash cutscenes where it's like press B to do a preset animation or fail and have to restart the whole process. Those were cool when they first came out, but they became a gimmick real fast, and then they started to get like overused, and the only like some games could do them well. For example, Resident Evil. So I think that the QuickTime events in Resident Evil 4 VR are going to be very similar to games like Beat Saber and Pistol Whipped, where they're going to take control of movement, so you're going to probably move forward on a straight plane, and then there's going to be enemies coming at you or certain boss attacks coming at you that you have to move your arms to deflect correctly like you would inside of the original cutscene, except they've reformatted that cutscene to kind of fit that in. If that makes any sense.
Let's see how hard I shake my motion controllers.
If one thing with that too is like, are they gonna make it so you're like actually in a knife fight with Krauser? Because I'm gonna be honest.
Well,
I'm
if
not
they
military
keep
trained, I'm gonna lose that.
Well,
time.
if they keep, here's the thing: they can slow down. They can slow down the frame right when you're supposed to react. So then you could move your arm.
Yeah.
And if they might have to reformat it, so in that Krauser fight, he's flipping over you. And then he's like, trying to go at your legs. He's trying to get behind you, right? They could keep Krauser in front of us and have him do like wide swings and jabs that we have to deflect away with our knife in the fight. So they just have to reanimate Krauser and then reset that knife fight so it keeps the action directly in front of the user and within that 90-degree sight line so the user doesn't have to crank their head in any which direction. That way, they feel like they are Leon and they're kicking ass against Krauser. Oh my god, it would be a really successful scene if they do it right, and I hope they do. Back to 2.
Stephanie's comment though goes, watch cutscenes on a security monitor. That is a good for story and immersion.
Yeah, no, that will kill immersion. I mean, Boneworks is a really great game, but the way they did cutscenes, I do not like. Same with Pistol Whipped. I mean, I go from shooting people in this awesome arena to awesome techno music, and then I get to watch a graphic novel story play out on a tiny little screen in a pitch black room. Definitely immersion breaking, in my opinion. Also, question everything I'm saying because, I am relatively early into my career as a VR developer, and a lot of my opinions could be wrong, misguided, or just under-informed.
Sorry to interrupt, but while you're doing this lock, is the zombie in front of you? Can he still
No,
attack
so
you?
when I'm doing this lock, the game is paused. I'm really glad you asked that. No, so he was not. The world around me was paused. They set time dilation to 0 for that.
Okay, because I was gonna say that would be a really
I
cool
abuse
detail if,
I abuse that so much as well. If I don't want to fight a zombie, I'll put myself into a lock event because it actually kind of sets them off a little bit. So if I get out of the lock right as I'm about to be attacked, the attack frame stops and then the zombie's just standing there, so I might have a little bit of a chance to get away if I pop myself into a lock. I've actually avoided the tyrant so many times by turning into a safe or something that I haven't unlocked yet, and then he resets. Which is really funny. I of course didn't get that on video. I was trying to capture the game as it was meant to be played in essence, where you're, afraid.
Just breaking the game.
Yeah, I also tried really hard not to move the camera around in case I have any photosensitive people in the audience. Also, we have a lot of viewers on this stream compared to previous ones, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Quinn, I have a question. Ink ribbons, did they?
So if you play Resident Evil 2 on hardcore mode, yes, ink ribbons are a thing. You have to manage them, and if you run out of ink ribbons, you cannot save. For assisted and standard mode, you can save as many times as you want, and I'm pretty sure I have 10 saves in this playthrough alone.
I see. And for those that don't know, in the original Resident Evil games, you would your save points would actually be one-use items called ink ribbons that you would find throughout the world of the game.
Because you save on a typewriter.
Yep. And so if you run out of ink ribbons, you can no longer save. So even saving in the original Resident Evils was a part of the item management.
Yes.
I could not imagine getting to a boss fight or right before a boss fight and not having an ink ribbon. I'd probably quit. And I guarantee that is why they removed that feature or setback from the game.
It was definitely
the modern player does not have the patience for that.
No, not at all. It was a great way of selling the tone of the game, but it was also a very frustrating game element for a lot of people. So I think newcomers and people returning to the series would be really glad to see the way they've readapted that feature into the modern titles.
I agree.
Yeah,
like
but
that.
another big difference that I think people that have played the original a lot may notice with this remake is the change from the fixed camera angles of the original title to the behind the character view that they've
That's
using
just
third
call it a
person
third
view.
person viewport.
Yeah, the third person view for the remake.
And full control of player camera as well.
Mm-hmm. And full control of the player, because there's no longer tank controls for Leon. He's you can fully control him. It's his own man finally.
He earned it.
I mean,
you know what? He did earn it.
Joe, when it comes to like this police station section where we're introducing the player to the systems in place in the game, what do you think is kind of like the most successful vertical slice moment in your direct opinion? And it could be the scene that we're watching right now. I'm just kind of wondering, like, what is your favorite portion? And keep in mind, in this playthrough, I did not get to the Tyrant reveal, which is personally my favorite, but I just ran out of time in the recording because hour. So I just am curious as to what you think. Like, your first time playing this game, like, what was probably, like, your favorite or most terrifying or most memorable section for you? And that actually goes to Anthony and Xavier as well, because, Xavier, you also played through this beginning section on my computer, so you can actually answer this for the first time. You've played this game. Congratulations. I picked a game that you have played.
Yep.
I would say... Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. I was going to make a snarky comment. Please, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, in terms of my favorite vertical slice or just general moment from this game, it would probably be the same thing, Quinn, the Mr. X reveal. But I just really enjoy the beginning. Like the very beginning, once you're within the city and you have to make the split decision between either playing as Leon or Claire, and it's you running through the city and getting to the police station. Like those two story beats right there, from getting inside, from trying to get inside to being inside in that first interior space.
And you think you're finally going to be safe? Like you come from a horde of zombies chasing you through the streets to inside the police station, and you almost want to go back out to the streets because the police station, it is so successful in what it doesn't show you, and all of the dark hallways with scary noises and doors being broken through. God, actually, like thinking about it right now is giving me some goosebumps, because like every time I play this game, it's like a mental exercise for me. It's like, all right, you're going to play Resident Evil 2, and this time you're not going to scream. Not once. And I'm wrong every time.
Yeah.
You're up.
Yeah,
I like going last.
No problem. Yeah, I will. As they were talking, I was trying to think through, because I was like, man, I haven't gotten too far in the story, so I can't really think of like a story moment where I was really blown away.
Well, it could also be like a gameplay moment or a level scripted moment as well for you.
I was just gonna say I was gonna bring up a gameplay moment that we actually saw earlier in the video. It was the moment right after the car. So Leon and Claire, they're trying to escape the zombie horde. They crash the car, the car, and it explodes. And as Leon's kind of like recovering from the explosion, and he looks forward, it's not said to the player, but they're being explicitly told, like, turn around, not because of like a forced wall in their path, but no, just because there's a horde of zombies in front of them. There's just a ton of zombies that like, okay, there's no way I'm going to be able to defend myself against all of these zombies. So obviously the right path to progress the story is to turn around and find an alternate route. And I think it's just like that silent moment where you're leading the player through the intended path of the game. It's very subtle, but it's something I can really appreciate in terms of the game design for Resident Evil 2.
Well, yeah, and I think that falls into one of the classic level design tropes of like the reveal, where you kind of hide the view of what the world is, and then you kind of give the player just a straight up in your face look at it. and the only thing they can do is react. Right?
Well, because up to that point, you've seen zombies, but you've seen them kind of scattered around. Like, you've never seen a group of zombies. You've seen, like, oh, there's one zombie in this area, and there's another zombie in this area, and oh, maybe there's 4 or 5, but they're kind of all over the place, so they don't feel like a cohesive threat. But that's the first time where you really get the feeling of, like, oh, this is an outbreak. This isn't like a small contained event. This is all over the city.
That's actually a great transition into the tonal shift between the first and second Resident Evil game. So has any of my guests tonight, have you guys played Resident Evil 1?
I have not played
Resident
Evil 1.
Resident Evil 1 took place in a mansion. It was an isolated incident. There was a select amount of zombies, and once you beat the game, you thought that was it. It was near Raccoon City, and then we get into this massive, like, the entire city is gone, and it shows kind of I think when Capcom was making Resident Evil 1, they were like, all right, let's make this game, right? And then Resident Evil 2, they were like, all right, we have to double everything and make everything more intense, more badass. We have to make the scale bigger. And even with the GameCube original, and PS2 original, they nailed that, right? That's something you don't see very often anymore. People will just release sequels to release sequels, and the Far Cry series is a victim of that, where they released one really awesome, Far Cry 2 and Far Cry 3, which are both dated games now, but they were really awesome when they came out. And then Far Cry 4 and Far Cry 5 felt like they were kind of phoning it in, whereas a Resident Evil game, of course, actually went through that same with Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6. But now that we're back to kind of them drawing from what was successful in the first place and then going in and perfecting that, I think that we've had a shift in just how AAA companies are releasing games, and I really like that. And being able to experience this game for the first time was something that I gotta thank Capcom for, because this game got to me.
Before we go any further with tone, I want to kind of keep this discussion, but put a pin on it. Anthony, we didn't get the chance to ask you your favorite moment.
To be honest, this whole time I've been thinking about it. There's a few of them.
Go
I think
go
one
off.
of them is when you're in the parking garage and you first encounter, like, just the hellhounds in general.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is about this game. Maybe I just love to run around and shoot everything in sight, but every time I'm at this part in the game, I never have ammo. So it's always so much scarier because I'm being chased around.
Well, because it's just after a boss fight.
Yeah, that's true.
So you spend all your ammo in a boss fight, and then you got to fight hellhounds.
Yeah, so maybe that's probably why.
Well,
So I
that
always have,
makes
like,
that
a
moment hit
grenade or
harder.
a flashbang, and I'm just sprinting around, just getting attacked by all of these wolves, basically. I think that's pretty much my favorite part. 'Cause
Zombie
it's the most
Doberman.
horrifying to me.
Yeah.
Or the labs. The labs are also really freaky.
Oh, with Biomutants?
Yeah, like that, I was not ready for that. I didn't need that in my life right
When
now.
they could just insta-kill you if you've messed up, like...
One shot.
your
It takes
target point.
one shot for you to end your play.
Yeah, that's like the perfect thing to put in a game like this too. Like that will keep the fear always there, even if you're used to the enemy. Knowing that if they just get you one time, it's over.
I think that's why, one of my favorite sections is the introduction of the liquor. They're blind, but one hit from them takes away more than half it takes away 2/3 of your health. And so you've been fighting zombies, and you finally get used to fighting these, slow-moving, easy-to-put-down enemies, and then the liquors come out. And they're fast. You have to completely change the way you're playing. You can't shoot them and then run around them. That just gives them your location so they can maul you to death. And oh my god, the liquors actually freak me out all the time. I'm still afraid of them, and I've played this game probably 6 times.
Has anyone been able to sneak? Have you ever been able to sneak around one, or no?
Yeah, I have. So if it's on, like, the ceiling or a wall, I can sneak around them unless it's on one of the harder difficulties, and then they just pick you up and end your life.
Yeah, those are tough.
Yeah, before we move on, I would like to, Quinn, if it's all right with you, I would like to make one correction to a previous statement you've made.
Oh, go ahead.
And that's just that Resident Evil originally came out on the PlayStation 1 and on the N64. And then there was a port of the second and third game for the GameCube.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about
Yeah.
that. audience.
Oh
My
no,
bad.
it's no problem.
Dude, I really appreciate you actually calling me on that.
Of course.
Jesus,
of course,
I would
yeah.
hate to be wrong on that one.
No, I mean it's absolutely no problem.
It's hard to like think about releases that came out when you were an infant because you have a general idea of when those games came out and your parents have played them, but you may not have. So like I can remember when the Halo games came out, but I have trouble, shooting back to the early 2000s of releases.
Yeah, see, and if you asked me when a Halo game came out, all of my answers I can guarantee you would be completely wrong.
If you guess in the late 2010s, you're pretty much spot on with those. So
got it.
There is that.
Understood.
I think...
So is this outfit that Leon's wearing? Is this a callback to Resident Evil 4?
No, this is actually Resident Evil. This is what he gets in Resident Evil 2. So Anthony, would you actually cover why this outfit appears in Resident Evil 4 and how you get it? Since you're a resident expert on RE4.
Oh god. All right, well, pressure's on now. Jeez.
Yeah, eat it.
My guess would be because it's from Resident Evil 2. I don't know, dude. I just thought it was always cool.
I would say
I
it
was
looks
just like, oh, it's an
well,
alternate outfit.
you get it.
And
You
it's
get
cool
it in your
something.
second playthrough of the game. So you beat Resident Evil
that's
4.
All you were asking? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Oh, I was like, I thought you asked like what it was like a nod to. I was like, I'm assuming this.
No,
game.
it's a nod to this game. I was saying like you get it in Resident Evil 4 as you're on your second playthrough as kind of a nod to this game, and then there's other outfits you get as well. But yeah, after you beat your first playthrough, you get to play your second playthrough with this same outfit. So no, it's not a nod to any other game, Xavier. This is actually just Leon's fatigues that Lieutenant Marvin Brana gives him when he gets to the Raccoon Police Station for the first time. Because he's technically starting his first day, so he's got to look the part.
Yeah, well, it's just funny because like the reason I asked because the outfit it just looks so similar in terms of like general form to Leon's outfit in Resident Evil 4. Once he takes the coat off, obviously, he's using like his kind of STARS secret CIA agent uniform. It's not like a traditional police uniform, but yeah. But that's good to know, because I've never played Resident Evil 4, so my like knowledge with it is
I'm like super offended. Really?
How could you say that? You call yourself a game designer? I haven't played it all the way through either.
The ultimate callback, it was if the RE2 remake had the classic and iconic leather jacket brought back from Resident Evil 4.
Oh, yes.
Because you only get that for one chapter, and then it's gone.
And then it's just
gone.
One of my favorite parts too is the other alternative outfit, the Mafia one.
Yeah,
that one is amazing because you can do a little player animation where he throws the hat in the air, and if you spam that a few times, you're like, yo, first few times is pretty cool, now it's a little weird. Like, I don't know why you're doing this so much. But I'll take that.
I think that
all day.
I think that unlockable outfits for your character is just the coolest little addition to the game. I also love gameplay modifiers, but I actually, as a player and a consumer, appreciate unlocking like a stupid outfit when I beat the game on the hardest difficulty way more than unlocking like a special weapon to play through the game again. And I don't know why that is, and I know it's probably just me, but
no, I'm sorry. I completely agree with that because when you change outfits or if it's something you've earned from doing something difficult, it gives a completely different aesthetic to the game that you're playing, even if it's the same exact content.
And if you had to earn it rather than just buy it off the asset store or like off the PlayStation store, God, it just feels so good because then that's like a status symbol for you. Someone comes to your house and you've got the Leon Mafia outfit and they're like, oh, I've never seen that before. How'd you get that? Sick.
Right? You're like, well, I'm a beast.
I just played the game on the hardest difficulty with only the pistol. What about it?
Yeah. Well,
I'm a masochist.
For the remake, did they bring back the tofu playable character from the original Resident Evil 2?
They did.
They did.
I didn't. I've never heard of that. What are you talking about?
I've never heard. Okay, so basically, there's a hidden character in Resident Evil 2. You have to play. I believe you have to play the game like near perfectly in order to unlock him. But if you do, you're allowed to play as a character who is just a giant block of tofu. And I think his only weapon is the knife.
I love
that.
Yeah, he's considered like the hardest difficulty for the game. And it's just kind of like a little bonus reward if you've played Resident Evil well enough. Resident Evil 2.
To jump away from talking about skins and stuff, in this room right now, I'm having a game life crisis where I'm trying to manage resources in my tiny inventory, which leads to the stress of the game because I'm also trying to dodge these zombies. And it's kind of fun to watch how I figured it out. And I just decided, all right, I'm going to shoot all these zombies to get rid of some of my handgun ammo so I can pick up this stupid valve. But I think there's a lot of moments like this in the game, and they're funny to watch after the fact, but during you're like, oh my god, I have to get rid of something, but what if I need it later?
He lost the knife.
Yeah, no, and like, you know, honestly, I ended up losing the knife later in this sequence again, so I could pick up the fuse to get through the door, because I couldn't pick it up right now. So, you know, that's something that annoys me in this game, but I also appreciate the fact that it's there, because I can't go picking up everything whenever I want to, which keeps the gameplay interesting, because I have to strategically manage my inventory and understand, like, God, I could pick up anything in this room, but what do I need the most at this given moment, and can I come back to get the other things that don't matter as much? Like, I can come back and grab that green herb, but I need the valve to continue on in the story, so I have to drop something to get that valve, and turns out it was my knife and some of my handgun ammo to get the valve and the fuse in this room so I could advance in the story. But I love moments like that, because I'm really pissed off while I'm playing them, because I'm like, God, if I would have just grabbed the hip pouch in the West Office, if I had memorized the safe code, that would have been the solution. But I didn't, because I wanted to play through this game like someone playing through on their first time, where they haven't memorized every single thing. So it was interesting to have to go through that moment again that I had in my first playthrough. It was like playing it for the first time. And it's like, after a few playthroughs of this game, you learn how to manage your inventory, and you learn kind of like what's important to have on you at all times and what can be left in the safe box. And you know, it was definitely a existential crisis moment for me.
Yeah. Once you get to that point, like that, then the game becomes all about getting the highest rank and getting through levels or sections.
Yeah, and beating the entire game in 4 hours. Like, how?
Yeah.
I think my fastest playthrough is 6 hours on this game.
Wow.
Wow.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank
go
you.
for that tonight.
I'm going to bow.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we're approaching, let's see, it's 7:47 currently,
Holy
so we
crap.
have 13 minutes left. Do we want to switch into how we would adapt Resident Evil 2 into VR?
Yes, let's really jump into that. Also,
Alright.
Resident Evil 4 Remake, if you have watched the gameplay trailer, is on the table. So if anyone in the chat has questions for us, we're VR developers, so if you have questions about the Resident Evil 4 Quest Remake or Resident Evil 2 and how you would think about putting some of the interactions into VR, let us know, and we'll talk with you about them. So go on, guys. Go crazy, Xavier. You introduce the discussion, please.
Yeah, okay. So one of the interesting things about the, kind of the jump from Resident Evil to the original to Resident Evil to the remake is the jump from the fixed camera angles that we were talking about earlier to the third person perspective. Because that means that now, instead of working with these pre-rendered environments, we're now working with the 3D environments of the remake, which would obviously
require real-time rendering.
Yeah, it would require real-time rendering, which is something you have to factor in, because the Resident Evil 2 remake is very graphically intensive. Like, there's a lot of detail into these environments that would most definitely need to be taken out.
So what I see being down-resed almost immediately is texture resolution. And any dynamic lighting moments are going to have to be converted to static. So we're going to see a loss in visual quality and visual interest. And that's just unavoidable with the current tech we have available to us. So if we were to remake Resident Evil 2 in VR, it would look nowhere near as good as it does right now.
Definitely not.
But 5 years from now, it could be pretty close, because VR tech is evolving rapidly. But if you wanted to play this game on your Quest 2, don't expect any dynamic lights except for the flashlight, and even then it might just be a 2D card with an emissive, right? So, like, you could probably afford to have one movable light in this entire game, and it's probably Leon's flashlight.
Yeah.
We
That's
did
all.
just get a comment again from Stefan. It says, "I want a good survival VR game, and I think Resident Evil would be fun to try to survive."
You know,
I will completely agree with this. I think this is the best way, the best game they could have picked for
Yeah, it'll
this
be on
to
Quest.
be in VR.
yeah. If you make a Resident Evil game for VR, you have to make sure that it can run on the lowest common denominator, and that's the Quest 2. Obviously, it's the most used headset, but it is the least graphically superior, as compared to any of the other headsets that are out. Like, it's even below the G2 HP G2 Reverb something. I don't know if I said that right. But yeah, if you were going to take the time to make a Resident Evil game for VR, and you were going to make this game in VR, yeah, it has to run on the Quest. You have to release that everywhere to get your investment back. It's got to sell a few million copies to, be profitable. So it would have to release on Quest, because otherwise there's not enough people who use VR to play it. So yes, it would have to run on Quest 2, and PC VR would look immensely better than the Quest port. But we would design it firsthand for the Quest 2, because that's the lowest common denominator, and then we would up-res for other systems, right? Because that's how you design a VR game, is you design it for your lowest hardware first, and then you up-res for your higher-end hardware in your systems and your computers. But you have to have a very, very low-res equivalent for players who don't have a $3,000 gaming PC, right?
Yeah. I mean, they are as much a part of the audience as anyone else.
So I'd say another thing that I'm really worried about with a Resident Evil 2 VR remake would be camera control. So if, obviously this would not be played in first person or third person, it would be played in a first person's perspective, so we would have to completely redo all the animations. I would get rid of Leon's arms and legs entirely, but I would leave his torso, and that's where I would attach his weapons for quick access. Oh, great question. How would you deal with the inventory? Joe, you've done a lot of inventory systems for VR, and you also love games that have good inventory systems. So I'm going to let you answer this first, and then I'll jump on that.
Oh, well, after seeing the Resident Evil 4 VR gameplay reveal and watching their inventory system, they just basically took the traditional one and just slapped it onto a screen that you just go into. It's like a different map, essentially.
And I'm assuming you wouldn't design yours the same way.
No. Where to start?
I would copy Saints and Sinners or the Star Wars Quest games, where the weapons are on your chest.
Yeah, the backpack approach that Saints and Sinners has, it feels to me like the best way to handle an inventory in a diegetic sense that I've kind of seen in a title so far. And it's a survival horror game, so that's kind of.
Not to mention, it'd be really scary if I'm fighting the tyrant and I have to open my backpack to grab my higher caliber gun so I can pop his head. Stop hitting me!
That's something interesting. Yeah, making the inventory system real time instead of pausing the game like it currently does would definitely add to the sense of horror
and to the immersion. When you make your inventory diegetic and you keep everything working in real time, that's how you step up immersion. So pausing the game for anything that isn't the pause screen is, in my opinion, an absolute do not do that in VR. Please, God, don't do it. If you're designing a VR game, do not pause the game for anything other than the pause screen. Thank you for listening to my subjective opinion.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I would say that in non-VR titles, I've seen diegetic menus actually work to a game's detriment, such as the Alone in the Dark remake that was made for the Xbox 360, I believe the PlayStation, which was, it had a diegetic menu in its game. So the player character, when they would pause the game or go into the inventory, they would reach down and they would actually look through their coat pockets to see where they've stored their inventory. It's a really cool menu system, a really unique one, especially for the time. But players had an issue where they would be constantly looking down through it. It would actually take away from the gameplay sections, because anytime they get injured, they have to go down, look at the menu, do the heal themselves, and then they can return to gameplay. It's kind of interesting to see how some things that would actually make an experience more immersive in VR could potentially come to a game's detriment when normally played.
Awesome pointer, man. Yeah, I like that. I just think it's different for VR. because, we want to keep the user, we want to establish a presence in the world. And, interruptions to that presence would be stopping the gameplay and letting the user know that this is just a simulation, right? We want to get as close to, realistic interactions with the game world that we can, and I can't pause real life when I'm in an argument with somebody. God, I wish I could. That would be so great. But I can't. So I think in VR it should be the same way. Another thing is, in this game, we see a lot of post-process effects on the camera itself. Like if we go under a stream of water or go into Steam, it like fogs up the camera, and we're seeing depth of field on the camera itself. And that's something you cannot do in VR, because with the VR camera, especially in Unreal Engine and Unity as well, we're not mimicking a camera, we are mimicking the user's eyes. And the user's eyes does not adjust to depth of field the way that a camera does. So I would avoid any motion blur, any depth of field, and any camera mimicking effects altogether, because that would most likely cause simulator sickness, or more commonly known as motion sickness within the player. And that's something that's very common in this game, is you'll see motion blur and depth of field on the screen, as well as a lot of heavy post-process effects that would not only destroy latency, but they would also likely cause motion sickness in the player.
Yeah.
Going back to the inventory, I think one way I'd redesign this, the backpack from Saints and Sinners is a good mechanic, but I'd like to kind of do something similar to what Echo Grotto does, where they have all these different waist belts that you can upgrade to, because one of the main collectibles in this game is, adding satchels to your character that...
Yeah, I'm about to grab one right now.
That would increase your inventory space. So I think if you had like a few that would show up on the character's chest or waist, you could have them... Like, that would be the incentive to collect these things, and that way they could put a health kit there, or ammunition in this pouch,
or armor.
Weapon sling. Yeah,
that'd be cool. I would say that would also add to immersion by like making you feel like you're actively upgrading your player, and you're becoming more badass and more confident in fighting these zombies. You'd feel like you have a bit more control over your situation, which, would make the game a little bit less scary. But this game is really intense, so I think making it slightly less intense would be really good for a VR user.
I don't know. I feel like this game would be way scarier in VR, just on the premise alone that you are actually the one that's having to live through this scenario, as opposed to watching and controlling someone that's going through this scenario.
I'm noticing a comment. Stefan, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. Pretty much everything I've read about depth of field in VR, especially within Unreal Engine, is like a don't do that. And I may have confused my definition of that, but I will be producing a video on the best practices of VR where I go into detail about that. So apologies if there's any miscommunication or, failure to relay the heavy details on uses of depth of field, but as I've been taught, that's something that as VR developers we tend to avoid, or we want to avoid. But if you have documentation that you could comment in the description of this video that I could read about, that'd be great. Binocular queuing is separate from, as well, that is also separate from depth of field, and that's what's the term for binocular queuing with player movement?
I apologize. Would you mind? Would you mind? I'm not currently looking through the is it the Twitch chat? So I'm a little bit.
Well, I have a bot that just relays it to all of the chats. So anything you're seeing here, this is coming through on YouTube. So.
Okay, yeah. So I was just curious what the comment was, because I was.
Oh, it was just it was a statement about the depth of field layers. You can do multiple layers of depth of field. I happen to disagree with that. But let's move on from that, because, I might need to do a little bit more research, and I could totally be wrong. I mean, that is also possible. So I don't want to, really dig in my heels here on that argument. As for right now, I'm just going to say I disagree. I need to do some more research, though.
Yeah. But back to the Resident Evil stuff. Oh, actually, it's almost time. So
yeah,
I think we should just move on to closing comments.
Yeah, so, Thanks everyone who watched the video. Thank you to my guests and co-hosts for coming on the show continuously every week. Of course, the show has been rebranded from QK Halliday's Game Analysis Podcast to the VR Devs Breakdown, and we're going to have 2 more episodes, and then we're going to take a week break. So tune in next week for Katana Zero, where we will be having a game art student at Ringling College of Art and Design as our guest, and we're going to be talking about 8-bit gameplay. So that won't be as VR-centric as the last few episodes have been, but we're going to be looking at, the resurgence of 8-bit graphics in video games, because that's definitely an interesting development I've seen over the last few years. The week after that, we'll be doing Hitman 2, and David Danley will be returning for the last show of Season 1. We'll be taking a week-long break, and then we'll come back with more episodes in the future. So, among that, I would like to just kind of give my guests the opportunity to kind of plug some of their socials. If you guys want to link your portfolios or whatever, you can go ahead and do that. Just let me know what I have to link and talk a little bit about it, and I'll make sure to put those in the description of the YouTube posting after the stream is done.
Okay, well, if anyone is interested in seeing a bit of my work, you can check out my art station. I will send that over to Quinn so that he can link that at the end of the video or in the YouTube comments for the video. Joe?
Same goes for me.
Yeah, art station and YouTube channel. Yeah, and Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you have started a YouTube channel.
No, you're wrong. That's okay though.
Okay.
All right.
So
I'll be a great night.
All right. I'm trying to think. There's one more thing I need to announce. Oh, so if anyone is curious about VR development or anything we've been talking about here, feel free to reach out to me directly on YouTube. I have tutorials up for developing on the Oculus Quest 2, and I'll be producing more tutorials for developing VR gameplay elements in the future. So if that interests you, feel free to go directly to YouTube and look at the Oculus Quest 2 with Unreal Engine Quick Start Guide, or if you have a Quest 1, you can also watch the other tutorial, but the pipeline has changed, so I would recommend going directly to the Quest 2 tutorial. I've got another one on sharing your files with other users so you can work collaboratively on real projects with GitHub, and that's a complete quick start guide and absolute setup to get you and your team working collaboratively on VR projects for absolutely free, so make sure to go hit that up as well. If you enjoy this show or any tutorials I have on my channel, feel free to subscribe. I don't care if you put notifications on. I just, I am very close to getting monetized at this point, about 400, maybe 300 subscribers left, and then I can start putting ads on these videos and making a little bit of a passive income, which would be really great for me, especially, working full time, and then, producing videos about VR content and game content in general would be kind of a perfect scenario for me. So I would like to just thank everyone who supported me thus far and continues to support me in the future, and I hope you guys all have a really great week.